What if Hollywood's greatest stars weren't just acting? Pacino dined with real Genovese bosses. De Niro had a Gambino hitman as his acting coach. Caan tried bailing out a Columbo boss. And Tony Sirico, he was a wise guy, linked to an infamous cold case. But they weren't the only ones. Some of Hollywood's biggest stars have secrets even wilder than the movies. Gianni Russo's path to fame was anything but ordinary. Before his unforgettable turn as Carlo Rizzi in The Godfather, he was more familiar with the underworld than Hollywood. With no formal acting experience, he secured the role of Sonny Corleone's ill-fated brother-in-law through connections that extended far beyond the film industry. Legend has it that Russo didn't just audition, he orchestrated his own casting. Knowing producer Al Ruddy's taste for luxury and exotic women, he sent an Asian showgirl in his Bentley from Las Vegas to Los Angeles to deliver his audition tape. Ruddy initially dismissed him, but when the production faced logistical roadblocks, Russo leveraged his mob ties to secure the Staten Island compound intended as Don Corleone's home. Associate producer Gray Fredrickson later said this made him indispensable. Russo claimed real-life crime boss Joe Colombo personally ensured he got the role. Whether fact or self-mythologizing, one thing is clear, his life rivals a gangster epic of its own. His early years were shaped by hardship and powerful figures. Stricken with polio as a child, he vowed to overcome his circumstances. Selling ballpoint pens outside a Manhattan hotel, he caught the eye of Genovese crime boss Frank Costello, who took him under his wing. From that day forward, I was with him every day, Russo has said. His stories only get wilder. He claims lineage to Sicilian Mafia royalty, friendships with John Gotti and Carlo Gambino, and romances with icons like Marilyn Monroe. His boldest claim? Killing 3 men, including a Medellin cartel member who attacked him with a broken crystal bottle in his Las Vegas casino. Despite 23 federal indictments, Russo insists he never spent a night behind bars. Fact or fiction, Russo blurs the line with the skill of a seasoned storyteller. In a career defined by one iconic role, he remains a real-life character too compelling for even Hollywood to script.
What were you doing with Pablo Escobar? I swear I killed his guy. You did what?
For most actors, playing a mobster requires research. For Tony Sirico, it meant drawing from experience. The man behind The Sopranos' Paulie Walnuts didn't need method acting. He had lived the life. Before Hollywood, he was making headlines in police reports. A real-life tough guy with a past fit for a Mafia film. Born Gennaro Anthony Sirico Jr. in 1942, he grew up in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, a breeding ground for streetwise hustlers and future made men. Back where I grew up, every guy felt the need to prove himself, he told the Los Angeles Times. You either had to sport a tattoo or survive a bullet wound. I had both. His rap sheet began early. First arrested at 7 for stealing nickels from a newsstand. As an adult, his charges escalated to extortion, assault, and weapons possession, leading to multiple arrests and 2 prison stints. His last conviction in the early 70s for gun possession landed him in Sing Sing, where a prison place sparked an unexpected career shift. Watching ex-cons perform on stage, Sirico had an epiphany. He later recalled thinking, when I saw them, I thought, I can do that. Upon release, he swapped the streets for the screen, quickly landing bit parts as mobsters in Goodfellas, The Godfather Part 2, and Gotti. But The Sopranos made him a star. Sirico had only one condition. I told them, I'll do it, but I ain't no rat. Even the Sopranos writers wove his real-life past into the show. In The Blue Comet, Paulie reminisces about surviving the Colombo family wars of the 70s, an era Tony lived through as an enforcer for Carmine Jr. Persico. But Sirico's past carried darker rumors beyond mob connections. His name surfaced in the unsolved 1977 murder of Krista Helm, a Hollywood actress known for keeping a secret diary of affairs with powerful men, including Hollywood elites and mob figures. Helm was stabbed multiple times and left for dead in West Hollywood. Though never charged, Sirico's name reportedly appeared in investigative circles. The case remains an open mystery, with speculation tying her murder to organized crime. Despite his history, Sirico built a career on authenticity. He played Paulie Walnuts for over a decade, blending menace with comic relief and earning a cult following. Junior was a genuine tough guy, James Caan once said, but now that he's straight, he gets to play it up. throw in a little extra spice. What you see on screen, that's him.
How quickly things change. Let me tell you something, Guido.
My name is Clarence.
James Caan made a career playing tough guys, but unlike most actors who only pretended to be gangsters, he had real-life wise guys on speed dial. Best known as the hot-headed Sonny Corleone in The Godfather, Caan's off-screen friendships blurred the line between Hollywood and the mob, proving that sometimes life does imitate art. The son of Jewish immigrants, Caan convincingly played Italian-American bruisers, so much so that even real mobsters took notice. His closest underworld connection was Andrew "Andy Mush" Russo, a high-ranking member of the Colombo crime family. When Russo was arrested in a 2011 mob takedown, Caan offered to put up anything of personal value for bail, writing to the judge that he would not hesitate a moment to fly in and be present if the court should request. The plea fell on deaf ears. Russo was deemed a danger to the community and remained behind bars. Caan's ties to the Russos ran deep. Andy Mush was the godfather to Caan's son Scott, and Caan even intervened in legal matters concerning Joseph "Jojo" Russo, Andy Mush's son. In a letter to the Brooklyn district attorney, he praised an investigation into an allegedly corrupt FBI agent who had jailed Jojo, calling Russo a dear friend. Despite his Jewish heritage, Caan was embraced by New York's Italian-American community. "I won Italian of the Year twice in New York, and I'm not Italian," he once joked. His mob ties even influenced Hollywood. According to Gaspipe, Confessions of a Mafia Boss by Philip Carlo, Anthony Casso, one of the most feared gangsters of his era, credited Caan with shaping Michael Mann's Thief. A Casso associate, Frankie Beansy, shared stories about their highly disciplined burglary crew, inspiring Caan to relay details to Mann, who incorporated them into the film's script. The result was a crime classic infused with authentic underworld tactics. But Caan didn't just rub shoulders with mobsters, he allegedly called in favors too. According to former Mafia enforcer-turned-informant Anthony "the Animal" Fiato, Caan once ordered a beating on Joe Pesci. In 1982, Pesci allegedly skipped out on an $8,000 Miami hotel bill, and when Caan caught wind of it, he reportedly asked Fiato to rough him up Mafia style. Fiato claimed to have a recording of Caan approving the plan, though Caan's reps denied the allegations. The supposed assault never happened, but the mere existence of such claims speaks to how deep he was in. Steven Seagal made his name playing untouchable, bone-breaking tough guys, but his real-life brush with the mob proved he wasn't as invincible as his on-screen persona. By the late 90s, his star was fading, and producer Julius Nasso, who had deep ties to the Gambino crime family, wasn't happy. When Seagal decided to walk away from violent films, he was also walking away from millions. The mob wasn't about to let that slide. In 2001, Seagal sat in a car outside a Brooklyn steakhouse, surrounded by men who didn't need a script to play gangsters. They demanded $150,000 per movie for at least 10 past films backed by Nasso. Later, he claimed ignorance about his associates, but few believed him. The shakedown had all the hallmarks of a classic crime flick, except this time, Seagal wasn't the one making threats. FBI wiretaps caught Gambino members discussing Seagal's payments, implicating Peter Gotti, brother of John Gotti. When the feds moved in, Nasso and others were arrested. Seagal testified, helping secure convictions, but the ordeal cost him his reputation. The Hollywood tough guy had folded when the mob came calling. Despite vowing to leave violent films behind, Seagal kept cranking out low-budget action flicks. Meanwhile, Nasso served time and later sued Seagal, winning a multi-million-dollar settlement. The two reportedly made peace, but Seagal had already veered into stranger territory, touting law enforcement credentials, cozying up to Vladimir Putin, and hawking dubious energy drinks.
Что ты, билет, гангстер какой-то, Gangster?
Al Martino didn't just play Johnny Fontaine in The Godfather, he was Johnny Fontaine. A crooner turned actor, Martino's real life mirrored the mob ties in the film. His 1952 hit Here in My Heart made him a star, but it also put him in debt to real-life gangsters who took control of his contract. When he tried to break free, the threats came fast, forcing him to flee to the UK. It was either leave or be fitted for a cement overcoat, he later quipped. But old ghosts don't stay buried. By 1972, Martino was desperate to play Fontaine, a washed-up singer pleading for a second chance. Coppola wasn't convinced until Martino allegedly called in favors from the same kind of men who once owned him. Enter mob enforcer Russ Bufalino, who reportedly persuaded the right people. Suddenly, Martino had the role. Frank Sinatra, enraged by the clear parallels to his own life, tried to shut the film down, storming out of a restaurant and cursing its phony cast. But even Sinatra knew when to back off. On screen, Martino's plea to Brando's Don Corleone felt eerily real, because it was real. After The Godfather, he returned to music, performing in casinos where his past still cast a shadow. He never became a Hollywood powerhouse, but maybe that was never the plan. Some debts, like some roles, last a lifetime.
What can I do? What can I do?
Hey, wise guys, you know Annalisa Zucca? That wasn't fiction. The Camorra is real, and they're ruthless. Me and a friend just launched Gangs of the Globe, where we break down the real rise and fall of the world's most dangerous crime syndicates. Want to know how the Camorra really works? We got a video on that. And next, the true story behind Gomorrah. Hit the link and subscribe. Mickey Rourke didn't just play a role, he lived it. For a brief moment in the 80s, he was Hollywood's most enigmatic tough guy. The leather-clad, chain-smoking force of nature in The Pope of Greenwich Village and Angel Heart wasn't an act. Rourke was that guy. A streetwise, self-destructive bruiser drawn to mobsters and chaos. His fascination with the underworld wasn't just research, it was admiration. According to Miami Babylon, Gerald Posner's expose on crime and corruption, Rourke immersed himself in real-life gangster circles, rubbing shoulders with members of the Gambino family, 2 generations of the Goddess, and notorious enforcer Michael "Mikey Scars" DiLeonardo. His obsession with the Mafia intensified after The Pope of Greenwich Village, a film that cemented his reputation as the ultimate cinematic street hustler. Rourke even formed his own makeshift gang in Los Angeles, a brotherhood of 13 men who swore loyalty in what Posner describes as a male bonding ceremony. Each received a tattoo, a shamrock on the left wrist, Rourke's initials in Gaelic, and a designated rank. Miami club owner Gary James, one of Rourke's inner circle, held the position of number 6. Their ties extended beyond theatrics. Rourke personally flew James to New York to dine with Gotti captains. When John Gotti stood trial in 1992, Rourke wasn't just watching, he was in the courtroom, seated with the Gotti family. He waved to the Teflon Don, embraced his associates, and told reporters he considered Gotti a personal friend. Victoria Gotti's memoir recounts how Rourke spent the night of January 19, 1996, drinking brandy with John Jr. Gotti as the mob heir awaited an FBI arrest. But pretending to be a wise guy had its consequences. At one point, DiLeonardo paid a visit to James's Miami nightclub, The Spot, with a blunt demand, "We want to see your books." The message was clear, either they got a cut or the club burned. That moment fractured Rourke and James's friendship, but it didn't end the actor's ties to the underworld. If anything, his loyalty to his gangster acquaintances only deepened. In 1999, when Miami club kingpin Chris Paciello, who had strong ties to the Colombo family, was arrested for murder, robbery, and racketeering, the judge set bail at a staggering $15 million. Rourke didn't hesitate to help. In a move that perfectly encapsulated his ride-or-die mentality, the actor's own mother put up the deed to her house in an attempt to secure Paciello's release.
You call that music? Hey, this is music.
Some actors researched their roles deeply, but Robert De Niro took it to another level. Known for playing gangsters in Goodfellas, Casino, and The Irishman, he didn't just portray mobsters, he learned from real ones. In one instance, he even met with a Gambino crime family capo to refine his performance. While preparing to play mob boss Paul Vitti in Analyze This, De Niro went beyond the script, seeking advice from Anthony Fat Andy Ruggiano, a high-ranking Gambino member. Ruggiano wasn't just a career criminal, he was linked to at least 7 murders, as revealed in court by his own son. His son testified that Ruggiano carried out multiple hits, including the murder of a Brooklyn florist, 3 men in a warehouse raid, and even one alongside his own son. De Niro's underworld connection stemmed from Anthony Carrasso, a small-time actor with deep mob ties. He had a minor role in A Bronx Tale and appeared as an extra in Analyze This, but more importantly, his brothers, Nicholas Little Nick Carrazzo and Joseph Carrazzo, were high-ranking Gambino figures. Carrazzo, well-connected in both the mob and film circles, reportedly facilitated meetings between actors and real-life wise guys. One insider described him as a crucial link between Hollywood and organized crime. When the story emerged, few acknowledged it. Carrazzo's nephew, lawyer Joseph Carrazzo Jr., dismissed the idea that his uncle had arranged the meeting. De Niro's longtime spokesperson, Stan Rosenfeld, remained vague, insisting the actor rarely discussed his research methods. Despite these denials, rumors persisted, further cementing De Niro's reputation for extreme dedication to authenticity. De Niro's ties to the mob world weren't limited to film research. Growing up in New York's Little Italy, he earned the nickname Bobby Milk, not for any criminal reputation, but for his pale complexion. Old acquaintances recalled him among local street gangs. Years later, at a 1971 Christmas party, director Martin Scorsese recognized him from their shared past. Initially struggling to place him, Scorsese eventually recalled seeing De Niro hanging around Kenmare Street with the neighborhood gang. When he mentioned it, De Niro responded with a knowing chuckle as if acknowledging a past they had both left behind. For De Niro, authenticity was everything. Whether meeting real criminals, befriending mob-connected figures, or drawing from his own past, his gangster roles always carried an air of truth, perhaps because in some ways they were.
Did you hear what I said? Don't buy anything, don't get anything, nothing big. Did you hear what I said? What's the matter with you?
For Al Pacino, The Godfather wasn't just career-defining, it pulled him into a world that wasn't far from the one on screen. In 1971, as the film was in production, Pacino found himself at a dinner table with real mobsters. Alongside Marlon Brando and James Caan, he attended a private gathering hosted by Pasquale Patsy Ryan Ebole, a captain in the Genovese crime family. The meeting wasn't some staged Hollywood research trip. It was a sit-down with men whose names carried real weight. The invite came through actor Al Lettieri, who played Virgil the Turk Sollozzo. Lettieri wasn't just playing a gangster, he was related by marriage to the Ebole brothers, including Tommy Ryan Ebole, the alleged front boss of the Genovese family. When Lettieri suggested Brando and the crew visit his in-laws in Fort Lee, New Jersey, the star showed up. Patsy's daughter, Giovannina Bellino, remembered opening the door to Brando, Caan, Morgana King, Gianni Russo, and Lettieri. Down in the basement, with wine flowing and a pool table in the background, Brando devoured homemade eggplant parmigiana. I remember sitting with him, watching a little drip of olive oil go down his chin, she said. Caan danced the night away. Outside, a Fed parked up the block, likely amused at the Hollywood meets Mafia spectacle. A few weeks later, Pacino arrived with Lettieri. He was quiet, focused. He needed the dinner for one reason: to refine his Italian for the Godfather's restaurant assassination scene. My dad and Uncle Al spoke Italian fluently, Bellino recalled. They drank plenty of wine. My brother joked, "How's this kid gonna get the lines down after 6 bottles?" Pacino struggled with the Italian, so the script was adjusted. The scene starts in Italian, then shifts to English when Michael Corleone delivers the now iconic line, "What I want, what's most important to me is that I have a guarantee. No more attempts on my father's life." While The Godfather became legend, the men at that dinner met a different fate. Tommy Ryan Ebole was gunned down in Brooklyn in 1972, allegedly over a $3 million debt to Carlo Gambino. 4 years later, Patsy Ryan Ebole disappeared. His car was found at JFK Airport, keys in the glove box. Pacino left the table and became one of cinema's greatest. The Eboles never left their world, and maybe that's why The Godfather felt so real.
Why'd I get mixed up with that bitch?
Because she got a great ass!
Danny Trejo never had to act tough. He lived it. Before Hollywood's go-to villain, he was the real deal. A gang enforcer, a prison-hardened ex-con, and a man who once stood inches from a gas chamber sentence. His face wasn't shaped in a makeup chair. It was carved by the streets of L.A., the corridors of San Quentin, and the bare-knuckle brawls of prison yards. When Trejo landed on the big screen, he wasn't playing a role. He was being himself. Growing up in the 1950s and 60s, Trejo had a talent for trouble and survival. He was deep in the game before his teens, running with gangs, slinging drugs, and collecting debts with ruthless efficiency. Violence wasn't just around him. It was part of him. In an interview with The Guardian, he recalled, "I went to the hole looking at 3 gas chamber offenses. During the 1968 Cinco de Mayo riot at San Quentin, a rock meant for a rival hit a prison lieutenant instead. So we all had crimes punishable by the gas chamber," he said. "And I remember thinking, God, if you exist, everything will unfold as it should. If you're not, I'm fucked." His salvation came through a 12-step program, faith, and an unexpected shot at redemption. After prison, he became a drug counselor, using his own survival as proof that change was possible. Hollywood wasn't in his plans until fate intervened. A producer on Runaway Train, 1985, recognized him from prison and asked if he could train Eric Roberts in boxing. That led to a role as an inmate extra, and just like that, the ex-con became an actor. What followed was an unlikely rise to fame. Trejo's past became his brand. With his tattooed chest, scarred face, and a look that screamed, "Do not mess with me," he became a crime film staple. Directors didn't need auditions. They just needed him to show up. From Heat to Con Air to Breaking Bad, Trejo embodied criminals Hollywood usually had to invent. The difference? His stories were real. Despite his tough image, Trejo never lost his sense of humor. He had no patience for celebrities glorifying thug life. All these rappers rise to fame and then suddenly chase street credibility, he told the Huffington Post. They get caught messing around with machine guns, and it's like, hold on, you're not a thug anymore. You're a businessman. His most iconic role, Machete, the ex-federale in Robert Rodriguez's Grindhouse saga, wasn't just a character. It was a mythologized version of himself, a man who went from prison cells to Hollywood marquees. A cancer survivor, restaurateur, and advocate for recovering addicts, Trejo is an icon of resilience and reinvention. I went from armed robbery to starring in movies. Who does that? Danny Trejo does. And he does it with a smirk, a scar, and a story no screenwriter could dream up. Frank Cullotta had a face you wouldn't forget. Sharp, hardened, the look of a man who had seen and done it all. But if you recognized him, it wasn't from Hollywood. Cullotta wasn't an actor. He was a gangster. Tony Spilotro's right-hand man and a key figure in the Chicago outfit's Las Vegas operations. In a twist too cinematic to be real, Cullotta didn't just inspire a character in Casino. He played a part in it, reenacting a murder he had actually committed. Cullotta appears briefly in Casino as a hitman, executing a police informant in a Costa Rican safe house near the film's climax. The moment hits hard, even without the backstory. But here's the kicker. That informant, renamed for the film, was based on Jerry Lisner, a real-life Las Vegas con man turned snitch. And Cullotta? He was the one who murdered Lisner in 1979, personally. That scene wasn't just acting, it was muscle memory. So how did a career criminal end up consulting on a Scorsese masterpiece? The answer is as classic as it is ironic. Cullotta flipped. By the early 80s, the walls were closing in. The FBI played him a wiretap of Spilotro, allegedly hinting at a hit on his life. Survival trumped loyalty. Cullotta turned informant, spilling decades of secrets and giving prosecutors the ammunition to dismantle the outfit's Vegas empire. He avoided a life sentence, entered witness protection, and disappeared until Casino came along. Scorsese, a stickler for authenticity, brought Cullotta on as a technical consultant. Who better to advise on a hit than a guy who had done it? But Cullotta wasn't just a behind-the-scenes presence. When an actor struggled with a hit sequence, Scorsese turned to Cullotta and said, "Show him how you did it." So he did. The reenactment was so chillingly precise that Scorsese cast him on the spot. One day, Joe Pesci, playing the film's version of Spilotro, locked eyes with Cullotta and called him a rat. Maybe he was joking, maybe not. Either way, Cullotta didn't take it lightly. He stepped up to Pesci and warned him, "Don't ever say that again. If Tony was alive, he'd rip your fucking eye out and shove it down your throat." Silence. Pesci, always intense, always in control, just nodded. He knew this wasn't some Hollywood extra. It was a guy who had actually lived it. That's why Casino wasn't just another mob movie. It had real guys making sure the story stayed real. Beyond the film, Cullotta remained an enigma. Half gangster, half storyteller. He leaned into his infamy, writing books, giving interviews, even running Las Vegas crime tours, spinning tales of old Vegas. Was he embellishing? Maybe. But the best stories always have a bit of smoke and mirrors. Cullotta wasn't born in Vegas, but he became part of its dark history. And in the end, he didn't fall to a bullet or betrayal, but to COVID-19 in 2020. A man who survived the mob, law enforcement, and the treacherous underworld of Vegas, taken down by a virus. The ultimate irony. Ever wonder what Furio would do if someone stiffed him? Well, Federico Castelluccio, the guy who played Furio on The Sopranos, found himself in a real-life mob drama. And let's just say, the lines between fiction and reality got very blurry. Here's the story. Castelluccio invested $50,000 in Joe Pesci's cousin Gino's restaurant. When the business tanked, Federico reportedly felt like he got clipped, especially when Gino started spending big on other projects. The twist? Rumors say Federico turned to a real-life mob boss, Andrew Andy Mush Russo of the Colombo family, for help collecting.
Give me $1,000.
But Castelluccio insists Gino Pesci has never owed me money. Anyone saying otherwise is not telling the truth. Still, the plot thickens. Court recordings revealed Russo allegedly talking to one of his captains, saying, Joe Pesci's cousin, he cheated some kid out of 50 grand. This kid, Federico Castelluccio, you know, the guy who played Furio. Russo reportedly promised, I'll get all the information, but the feds swooped in before any plans could unfold. Meanwhile, Gino Pesci brushed off the drama, calling Federico an incredible artist but not a businessman, and claiming he took the loss harder than anyone else. Federico's connection to Russo wasn't just a rumor. He even showed up at Russo's bail hearing back in 2011. But both Federico and Gino deny knowing anything about an extortion plot. Russo's lawyer claims the mob boss wasn't planning anything shady. He was just a Home Alone fan chatting about Joe Pesci's movies. Yeah, sure, because every mob boss casually talks about Home Alone in the middle of a 50-grand dispute. So, what do you think? Did Furio get caught up in a real-life Sopranos episode? Or is this all just an unfortunate coincidence?
No bitch to me.
Wise guys, listen up. I'm an Audible associate. Use my link for a free 30-day trial. Binge Donnie Brasco, The Godfather, Wise Guy, Casino. All the classics to channel your inner Tony. Enjoy this video? Don't miss The Sopranos. Where are they now?